Good morning. Welcome back from this short break. Coffee was good. Probably for the Italians it was not, but for the rest, more or less. Let's keep the discussions going with a session on RTOs industry and Europe's technological sovereignty. The session will be divided into two parts. First, we will hear a series of keynote interventions from distinguished representatives of European institutions, industry, and the innovative ecosystem. Then we will move on to a panel discussion with some colleagues from leading European RTOs who will share their perspectives on the key role of the RTOs in strengthening Europe's technological leaderships and industrial competitiveness. To open the keynote section, I am pleased to welcome Alexandr Hobza, cabinet expert in the cabinet of Executive Vice President Stéphane Séjourné, responsible for prosperity and industrial strategy. Alexandr, thank you for joining us today.
Now there we go. So good morning. Thank you very much for the kind invitation to this great event. And my task is basically to put things a little bit in perspective and explain to you how the Commission has been thinking about helping the European industry, and then also how to support or enhance our technological sovereignty. So when you think about the position where Europe finds these days, some people would dub it as being between rock and a hard place, actually being subject to a number of recent crises coming from all possible directions. The geopolitical, security elements, but also being under increasing competition in terms of technologies. So all these elements are creating very challenging environment for Europe. Almost 2 years ago, Mario Draghi published his report on the future of Europe's competitiveness, and there he already argued that the situation was very urgent and then we need to do many things in order to put Europe on a better path. Now, this almost 2 years later, the situation is even more urgent. Right? And on the one hand, we have the long-run structural problems or issues, which Draghi was describing in his report. At the same time, the very big crises which have come on top of this are making the case for action much more urgent. Right. You may also see this shift if you follow presentations of Professor Draghi. When he was presenting the report, he was asked what would happen if his recommendations were not implemented, and at that point he said that we would go through a slow agony. Right? When he was asked similar question recently, his words were much more urgent, and then basically saying, okay, this is a huge issue and we need to act very fast and now. So we're facing much harsher geopolitical environment. Their aggression, predation, coercion have become the new normal. So essentially we have shifted into a mode to which Europe is not necessarily accustomed. On the one hand, we have US, also with their assertive industrial policies, and on the other, China with even more assertive industrial policies and also huge scale. When you think about Chinese industry, China currently accounts for some 30% of manufacturing capacities in the world. You know, going up from some 6% only 25 years ago. So you see this is a huge jump. On the other hand, Europe has been declining, and now we're at 14%. And then some of you may be aware of the aspirations or ambitions to move to 20%. So China going very up, Europe going down. And also if you look at some of the prospective sectors like clean tech, there you see that some 50% of batteries and then 90% of batteries which are used in Europe are actually imported from China. So they dominate some of the supply of key industries and sectors. So this, I think, is a very stark picture and then calls for Europe to act. Obviously, the new Commission, when it came to place, wanted to act on the recommendations from Mario Draghi and embedded them in its political agenda. It has adopted the so-called competitiveness compass, which is a main policy document that is translating the Draghi vision into European policies. And it's based on 3 pillars. I'm sure you've know them, especially because the first one is innovation. So innovation has been put in the heart of what Europe is doing to actually secure and improve its place in the world. Then, of course, the second pillar is to decarbonize our industry, to make it, not only clean, green, but also competitive on the world stage. And then finally, to address issues related to our resilience, security, and defense. So essentially something which is very important and which has gained in importance recently. So Commission has embraced this vision and has been implementing it quite diligently. So over the last 2 years, a number of new initiatives have been put in place. Sometimes you see the assessments, how much of the Draghi report has been implemented, and then some of the figures are not necessarily flattering, saying only 10% of recommendations. But one needs to bear in mind that unfortunately, the European legislative process is slow. So getting from an initial recommendation into impact on the ground takes a while. But trust me, we're doing all we can, and the Commission is running in full speed, and also liaising with the other partners in the legislative process. And I'll get to it in a second. So the main pillars of European response were, on the one hand, to finalize the single market. Right? I think everyone has already heard this story. Single market is the jewel that we have. Unfortunately, it's maybe not as shiny as it should be, because there are still many obstacles that lie on the road if companies want to do trade between EU countries. But the Commission has taken new political commitment to move on this side, and then we're trying to address this at the very operational level. So there we have identified the so-called terrible 10, the most annoying obstacles which prevent or reduce trade in goods and services, and working with different actors to remove those. But also we're trying to address the political aspect of this issue. And that's why the Commission, the European Parliament, and the Council have signed the so-called Single Market Roadmap, which lists a number of initiatives and commits to coming to an agreement on those as quickly as possible, so that we can actually benefit from to a much larger extent from the single market. Now, one important thing here is, when one is talking about single market, this may sound a bit abstract, but when I'm talking to colleagues, I tell them when we discuss innovation policies, single market can be actually one of the most potent pro-innovation policies that we can act on. Of course, it is useful to put in place programs with support, grants, and so on and so forth, but allowing startups, scale-ups to do trade across borders, to provide them with market, this is one of the most powerful levers that we have, and we do want to deliver on that side. Other pillar of our response is trade. Europe doesn't want to turn into autarkic entity. We want to be open and trade with as many like-minded partners as possible. And this is also why the EU has been very active in terms of concluding free trade agreements with new partners, signing memoranda of understanding, for example, on critical raw materials, which is another important element which entered the stage recently. Third, avenue that we are pursuing is to put in place more active industrial policy. I've already mentioned US and China with their industrial policies. Europe needs to follow. We need to have active and modern policy, which would cover the all important dimensions, not only trying to address supply measures, but also addressing demand, taking the supply chain logic, because this is something which is important. You want to have the continuity along the supply chains, which is boosting our resilience and also ensures level playing field for all the actors, and which also contains made in Europe or European preference provisions to make sure that support that comes from Europe is directed towards European companies. Now, the last element that we are acting on is boosting our investment capacity. And you have surely heard about the proposals for the next multi-annual financial framework, which were issued last summer. Part of which is also the proposal for the European Competitiveness Fund. And this is something which is clearly very important and relevant also for the whole research and innovation world. Because this new construct, which is bringing together a number of existing tools and which will be very closely connected to the next generation of Horizon Europe, is meant to provide or establish investment capacity to support European competitiveness in strategic technologies and sectors, where clearly disruptive innovation, decarbonization, resilience will be very important. The idea behind this proposal is to make sure that we support innovations along the whole so-called innovation investment journey, from their birth into basically scaling up manufacturing and full deployment in the market. The current tools, they are helpful along a number of the stages, but we have several gaps which make it for innovations difficult to become commercialized and then actually bring the prosperity that we're hoping for. Right? So the idea is to simplify, to bring things together, bring also more adaptability and flexibility to our tools, and allow us to have tools that would allow for this smooth transition and commercialization. This is very important because, again, coming back to where I started with the Draghi report, from there we know that the commercialization of innovations in Europe is one of the weakest points that we have and that we actually need to address in order to be able to compete with the US, with China, and also other global partners. Now, as the Commission means this seriously, we have proposed to allocate quite important amounts to these tools. So for the ECF, it would be some 234 billion. Next to it, Horizon with 175 billion euros. So these are big figures. Now, of course, you know the discussions are currently ongoing on the specific proposals, but on the MFF as a whole. So in all likelihood, these will not be the final figures. Let's keep fingers crossed that in the discussions with member states and with the European Parliament, we will manage to retain as a large portion, for these tools in order to support innovation, technologies, and so on, so forth. Now, within these tools, I mentioned more flexibility, adaptability, so that we can focus on issues which do matter. You probably know that there are 4 windows which bring together, or which identify the priorities that these tools should be addressing, which is on the one hand clean transition and decarbonization, on the other hand health and biotech, digital and resilience and security. So you see, this is quite a broad set of priorities within which Europe has a potential, but also needs to develop further in order to be competitive. Now, let me conclude briefly on the role of RTOs, because you surely are asking where RTOs are within this big picture. I think in order to boost Europe's innovation capacity, one needs to build on ecosystems. And this is something, this is also the idea behind the new tools as they're being proposed. I've already mentioned the value chain logic, bringing together different players so that we have the system as a whole well functioning. And also because the main issue which we're facing is commercialization. This is somewhere where RTOs play a very important role, because RTOs are at the intersection of these ecosystems where they do produce research which is applied and also lies with many other partners in the ecosystem, be it companies or for other research organizations and so on and so forth. So if we want to really build a strong innovation ecosystem in Europe, it needs to be built on networks, and this is something where RTOs, with their huge experience from commercializing research, translating into something practical, and the networks of connections with different players are very important. So I would see many opportunities in this regard, which go well beyond what is available currently under Horizon Europe. So essentially, this link moving towards market is something which provides a lot of space to intervene. Of course, there is currently still a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty as such is not necessarily something which we take well. But at the same time, as I mentioned, I think uncertainty creates a lot of opportunities, and in order to be able to exploit them, it's very important that one keeps engaged, see in what direction the discussions are ongoing, and then starts early to be able, once the next MFF is in place, to start contributing and benefiting from these tools. So let me stop here.
Thank you very much, Alexandr. Please stay on stage with us. You can sit here. Thank you very much for this interesting insight into the priorities of and ambitions driving Europe's industrial strategy. Our next keynote speaker is Anthony Gálvez, Secretary General of the European Roundtable for Industry, which brings together chief executives of Europe's leading companies. Anthony, thank you for being with us. I leave the floor to you.
Good morning. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. So Jesús, Muriel, and my fellow panelists, thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. The relationship between the European Roundtable, I'm going to kick off maybe by telling you who we are and what we do. The European Roundtable for Industry was created in the 1980s by 17 CEOs who had an idea and had a bit of a dream. That dream was to create a single market in Europe. They took that dream to Jacques Delors and to Pascal Lamy, and they added it to a list of ambitious projects at that time that included a single currency, political union, a European army, and one or two other interesting ideas. It's interesting to think back that people were thinking about these things in the 1980s, and here we are today. They took the single market idea, fortunately, and that was the one that all the heads of government at the time agreed to. Today, fast forward, we are 60 CEOs and chairs of the top European companies. And there's I think a real interest, if you like, in the organization now, and in part because of the themes that have been chosen around this conference, where issues around sovereignty, issues about being European relative to being from other parts of the world, take on a far greater importance. That is not necessarily comfortable either for research and technology organizations that are borderless in many respects in terms of good ideas, good scientific ideas, good research, and companies who have made it their business to go around the world, and very successfully. And Europe, in that respect, has been very successful in an export-led growth model. When I returned from a previous incarnation when I was in this city over 2 years ago, I looked into the proportion of Europe's GDP that is dependent on trade with the rest of the world. So that's not including what we do amongst each other. And it went in the last 20 years from 30% to 55%. Now, in other times, that's fantastic. Not now, because now those 55 are a lot more fragile. In the same period of time, the United States went from 26 to 28%. So its dependence, if you like, on itself has been maintained a lot more strongly. And I'll come back to some of those points. So the ERT in terms of figures, the revenues of the companies come to 3 trillion, the jobs 6 million, and investment in R&D 120 billion. I've heard a lot this morning about an active industrial policy from our 2 speakers from the Commission, which is, I think, very salutary. And I would perhaps, before I launch into the elements that I'm going to comment, underline the importance of completing the single market, underline the importance of doing the stuff that isn't so sexy, but we have loads of barriers, loads of obstacles, and loads of gold plating that mean that we don't actually have the ability to take the benefit of this market in the way we should. So we're probably only about 50 or 60% of what we can get from it. Now we need to turn an export-led model into a model which is far more linked to domestic growth. And we're talking a lot about startups that we want to scale up. For that, you need a completed single market, because when those companies start operating and you want them to operate here, they need to be able to operate in Europe, not suddenly hit a barrier in the Netherlands or in France or in Germany, and each time there's something specific that gets in the way. And that's our reality today. I say it because it's very important that we give that top priority. The single market completion is one priority, but it's got 6 sides to it. It's like a Rubik's Cube. I don't know if you used to play with the Rubik's Cube when you were little. I used to get very frustrated. It's not an easy thing to do, but you've got to get the 6 sides. It's not enough to get 1. You've got to get the 6, and that means people working together in all of the institutions inside, between, and then also with RTOs, with industry, with the key players. And those 6 sides are the single market in goods, the single market in services, capital markets union, so people have the money to be able to stay here. Not everybody wants to go to the United States, but they are drawn mainly for that reason. 28th regime, an energy union. Why? Because we pay more for energy than anybody else in the world. And we're our own worst enemies, because we don't open up our borders between each other, we don't have grid infrastructure, our interconnections are risible. Even today, there was a big blackout between Spain, Portugal, in Spain and Portugal. The interconnection level with France, 3%. What should it be? 15. Going to 20 in 2 years, 3%. Whose fault is that? Ours. In this case, I'd put the finger on the French, but I could put the finger on the Spanish and the Portuguese for other things, because we are all at it. That's the problem. We're all playing our games, our little national games, sometimes even our regional games, and the rest of the world is looking at that and laughing a little bit. But we cannot afford to do that anymore. So I will stop with that, but I do want to underline it, because we can talk about loads of other things, European preference, Let's not lose sight of the most important thing that we have not done. Because we got this market going in 1992, and it is 2026. And we don't have time. We've heard that earlier. We heard it from Andrea. We don't have time. And if we don't do it, then it won't be a slow decline. That's the difference. I think that Mario Draghi's made that point now, and we take it on board. Now, when it comes to the broader innovation ecosystem, the EU industrial actors have traditionally sat at the apex of translating foundational research into commercialized global market leadership. We have long relied on world-class RTOs to supply the raw scientific brilliance which industry has then scaled into high-value manufacturing and systemic infrastructure. This is changing due in large part to tectonic shifts in global geopolitics and in geoeconomics. Compared to Europe, the US and China have always approached innovation more as an instrument of economic security, of statecraft, and geopolitical dominance. We have to be clear about that. We are late to the game. In recent years, fueled by the rivalry between both powers, the US and China have taken increasingly strategic approaches to gain technological leadership, which translates into massive, unbureaucratic public subsidies like the US Inflation Reduction Act, alongside aggressive state-directed capital deployment in China to control entire clean tech and digital supply chains. China and Europe have one thing in common. We're both very good at plans and strategies. The difference is that whilst Made in China 2025 was presented back in 2015 and fully implemented, the EU Lisbon agenda remained nice words on a page. We are the worst implementers. And we again have to think very carefully about that. Whose responsibility is that? Whose fault is that? And we can look around and blame somebody else, but the collective result is ours. So to do something about it requires us to wake up, not only wake up, get out of bed and start walking and running. China has also put its money in the form of those subsidies where its mouth is. The OECD's MAGIC database, that's manufacturing groups and industrial corporations, has revealed only a few days ago the extent to which China's extraordinary performance in the last 20 years was driven by subsidization that outstripped anything OECD countries did by factors of at least 3 and as much as 8 in everything from chemicals to wind turbines. As a result, it's neither a secret nor an accident that both the US and China have overtaken Europe across key technologies. As Europe has had a rude awakening to its economic security vulnerabilities, and with policymakers devising initial responses, European industry has not been sitting on its hands. EARTO members have been aware that current times require that traditional industrial actors become far closer to the more innovative players. Many of you have heard of Mistral AI. Who is funding Mistral AI? One of our companies, ASML. ASML, which is not sufficiently well known, it's a world beater. When we talk about the chip supply chain without ASML, it's like having a blank page and nothing written on it. Again, we don't know too much about these things sometimes as Europeans. It's extraordinary the number of people who've never heard of ASML. We've all heard of Apple, and we've all heard of all of those wonderful brands in the US. So we need to be a bit prouder of our own. But, dirty little secret, ASML doesn't sell any machines in Europe. It sells its machines in America and in Asia. And that is a problem that we also need to look at very carefully. So, ASML investing in Mistral AI, a good example, but companies led by EARTO members are connecting up cutting-edge companies in areas like defense, clean tech, with deep tech capabilities. What can European policymakers do to facilitate these kinds of collaborations on a bigger scale and make them grow? A few things come to mind. First, implement genuine ecosystem thinking. Much of technological innovation is a matter of geography. Geographically concentrated technology clusters are proven to facilitate collaborations between bigger players like the European multinationals we know and smaller disruptors. This is necessary to accelerate the commercialization pipeline, lower the cost of capital, and de-risk the deployment of breakthrough technologies at industrial scale. In Europe, we already hold world-class clusters. How many of you in this room have heard of Brainport? Hands up. It's a good number, you're not representative. So Brainport is in Eindhoven, and it's an excellent example. There we have ASML, we have NXP, we have wonderful universities, we have super people in regional government and in national governments who are working really well together. It's actually the home of Philips, too. There you go. Absolutely. So, come on, give it a round of applause. So there's much that Europe is already doing to facilitate ecosystem functioning across strategic sectors. Look no further than the CHIPS Act, the Net Zero Act, the IPCEIs designed to bridge lab-to-fab gaps. However, in the current context, looking at individual industrial areas isn't enough. What's needed now is scale, speed, and system coherence across sectors. Underpinning such actions should be tough choices about where, given the location of top technology infrastructures across Europe, deep clusters and ecosystems can be replicated. In instances where certain elements of an ecosystem can't be replicated, global partnerships should be sought. This is something we're not seeing happening yet. Secondly, a functioning governance architecture. This again implies a form of clear prioritization and also sufficient resource to facilitate the scaling of innovative ventures and strategic projects. The record here is mixed. On the one hand, we see that European policymakers are receptive to the geopolitical changes and the need for Europe to matter again in key technologies and innovation. Much of the debate now is focused on the new FP10, successor to Horizon. We asked for 200 billion in financial firepower, doubling current levels, and seeing the Commission propose 175 isn't bad at all. Now we need to keep it there. We're highly encouraged that this target is backed up by the Heitor and Draghi reports, as well as more recent conclusions from the European Council. But we really need to fight the fight there. Looking at the detail within existing policy architecture, much more can be done to attract and incentivize rather than crowd out private capital and investment, moving away from the established way of working and making large industry participation in Pillar 2 conditional on heavy financial contributions isn't going to crowd in capital. It will instead only lead to a cessation of corporates' participation. So I underline that point. It's an important point, I think, for the Commission to take on board, because we want to keep in the game. So it becomes a legitimate question whether Pillar 2 would still merit its current 55% plus share of Horizon Europe resources. We can't design industry out of the architecture and still expect the architecture to deliver industrial sovereignty. Harnessing the full potential of dual and shared use and the boulevard of opportunity for innovation to benefit from the defence imperative is also a really important thing, and there it's great that the Heitor report included this. All of this thinking on research and innovation doesn't exist in isolation. The EU is already the best place in the world in which to live, study, and work. There is a visible appetite amongst researchers to come here, so facilitating visas for such talent needs to be part of a brain gain push. Ensuring the free movement of researchers, the so-called fifth freedom, within the EU is another piece of the puzzle. A truly vibrant research and innovation environment can only function when the EU becomes the best place in the world to do business by shifting from prescriptive and complex to pragmatic and coherent regulation and administration. So policymakers there should put the business case for innovation very much at the centre of all legislative initiatives, and we know that there's good work in that direction. I'm almost done. Recent initiatives on simplifying EU legislation and removing barriers in the EU single market have come a long way in this broader effort, but the real breakthrough has yet to come. Given the changing times, much more can and should be done. As I've tried to make clear here, European industrial players are at the forefront of many of the current challenges. In order for Europe not to lose its pace in the race for technological leadership and ultimately ensure a robust market for new technologies, we need to make bold policy choices. We stand ready to support, together with you, the RTOs, to make these changes. More than that, we will be producing a study on what delivers a really genuine innovation cluster very shortly. And thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to join you here this morning.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for sharing the challenges that the European industry is facing. We never forget that the role of RTOs is to help European industry, which is the most important actor for European competitiveness. Our final keynote speaker is Gilles Requena, Chief Patent Research and Policy Officer at the European Patent Office. Gilles, thank you very much for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And like the previous speakers, I'm very pleased to be with you this morning, but I have two reasons to be very pleased this morning. First of all is that I have the opportunity to address this distinguished audience. And the second reason is that today we are publishing the news about the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the European Patent Office and EARTO. And I would like to thank warmly President Valero, Secretary General Muriel Attanay, for the very discussions we had over the last week, which led to this outcome today. And for us, this MOU is not just a piece of paper that we'll put in the cupboard and that we'll monitor every 2 years. For us, we are in a way fulfilling one of the calls of Mario Draghi and Enrico Letta. Because when we speak about fragmentation, when we speak about barriers, it's not only physical, it's often in the mindset of the people. Too often, yes, we have a lot of excellence in Europe. Yes, EARTO, European Patent Office, academia, research in Europe, or startups at the early stage are matching excellence level, and they are nothing to be shy when you compare to the US and China. And then when we are facing a mountain of problems, everybody is thinking in silos individually. And I think that if we want to make a difference, if we want to avoid that in 5 years, maybe another former Italian prime minister will come to us to tell us, you didn't get the message right, we need to act, and we need to act with speed. This is also a word that I heard several times this morning. So we work, of course, together. And for those who are perhaps not so familiar with the European Patent Office, just in few words, we are the second largest European public organization with 6,500 staff members, including 4,000 engineers, scientists, what we call patent examiners. And the main task of my colleagues are to examine something like 200,000 patent applications per year. Those patent applications, they are coming from all over the world. 25% from US companies, followed by German companies, Chinese companies, number 3 last year. They overcome Japanese companies, South Korea, France, and then Switzerland and the rest. We are the big Europe. All 27 member states are including our organization. We have a budget of 2.5 billion euro per year. And of course, we are well known for two main tasks in the world. First of all, the quality of the patents which are delivered by our office, which is considered as the best quality in the world, best quality than delivered by the Chinese office, by the US office, by the other offices. And the second element for which we are also very appreciated is our task in collecting the information and creating the biggest patent data in a database in the world. We have 116 million documents, patent documents in our databases. This is the highest number. And it is completed with scientific publications, 300 million documents. And altogether, this treasure of data, of course, give us some muscle, some strengths, and especially we have been through this digital transformation, like all of you, over the last years, and he helped us to develop new services, new tools, because what we want to do, but we consider patents not like an end in itself, it's a tool that should serve a purpose, and we are, of course, a public organization, non-biased, but it's certainly something we can do more and better, and especially by working together with other institutions and European institutions. Keeping the cyclism metaphor this morning, even the great Wout van Aert, he needs a team to climb Mont Ventoux or Alpe d'Huez. And I think this is how we should now work closer together, and this MOU for us, it's a new start. But we have already developed ties over the last year. We have studied the ecosystem of innovation over the last 3 years intensively through the Observatory on Patent and Technology created by the EPO 3 years ago. And what we have observed is, of course, when you look at universities, startups, often when they don't find a partner in their country, an Italian university will look for an Italian investor, and the story will stop there if they don't get an answer there. And this is what we should overcome. We have ways to do that. We have ways to create European platforms, ways to pool resources, and now it's time to act. I will give some concrete examples, and I hope it works. And just a bit of the patent ID of EARTO here today. So using the information and the data in EPO databases. You can see here over the last 10 years the activity. Patent applications file, first line in black is by RTOs in general, and the green one is EARTO. So over the years, EARTO has maintained a share of 50% of all patent applications filed at the EPO compared to the whole group of patent and RTO centers in Europe. If you look now more precisely at the top technical fields, computer technologies, of course, at the EPO, the top 3 domains last year were computer technologies, energy, batteries, and digital communication. And the first 3 applicants at the EPO were Samsung, Huawei, and LG. Moving now to the top applicants from EARTO, Commissariat à l'énergie atomique, Fraunhofer, and of course, you recognize some of you here, some members. It's very good, but it could be better. And also, when I say that everybody should do an effort, what we heard from the regular publication of our ranking is because of the highest level of attention that you have nowadays, and I must say that I work in innovation for the last 30 years and a bit more, and never in my life I have experienced such a level of attention at the political level about the importance of innovation and the link with competitiveness. Finally, we get there. But to maintain this momentum, that it will last, and more important, that it will deliver some concrete elements, of course, we need to work together. The feedback we receive about our ranking is that it's very nice maybe for companies because they file alone, but we publish co-applications. And just to take the first applicant in the ranking, this is a convention, a standard between patent offices in the world, it does not pay tribute to the whole efforts that PROs are giving to innovation ecosystem at the world. So what we did, I'm sorry about still this format of raw data. So we look into all patent applications where not only you were quoted as first applicant, but you were associated to. And you can see sometimes a marked difference between the situation where you are first applicant and then enlarging the vision about all patent applications where you contributed to. So to take a first name, CNRS, you can see that first applicant is 127, and it multiplied by 5 when you see the whole contributions. And this is very important for them, because we have higher attention about how the public money is spent, and for them, they want to give the full picture to the minister, to their authorities, to show it's bigger than that. So this is just, again, a raw format, but this is a kind of supplementary information that we will provide you with, and we'll continue those efforts. Another way is, of course, for us getting out of our comfort zone is to say, okay, we have some funding mechanism which rely very much on the analysis of the technology which is proposed by a startup, a deep tech startups. And 3 years ago, the colleagues from ESMEA came to us and to say, well, we were looking for some access to expertise in terms of technology assessment. And it turned out that, well, the EPO is #1 in the world for the quality, so why not asking them whether you should support us? We could support us, maybe not in all financing, funding projects, but at least in some of them. Okay, let's start. We try with the pilots. We have the well-known search reports linked to any patent application. We adapted the search report to the need of ESMEA, and it turned out that it was very simple, very well. Experts can talk to each other. That was not difficult at all, but we need a first step always to start a journey. And nowadays, we have participated to the analysis of 170 projects, which are pre-selected by ESMEA for the total value of 315 million euros. This is just the start, of course, and we will continue to expand our support. And this is something which is done pro bono. We don't ask any fees for that. This is part of our contribution to the innovation ecosystem in Europe. Another way to support them was also to draft what we call cartographies. To better understand the value proposal of startups, you need sometimes to evaluate in a broader ecosystem, not the whole ecosystem, but sometimes in a very niche ecosystem like DNA digital storage. And this is also something that we can do, and to the satisfaction of ESMEA. Now we are more and more in contact with national authority who will like us as well to support them for their national funding. Another illustration is we talk about how to facilitate the connections between the actors of the ecosystem. And what we have launched now 3 years ago with quite some success, I must say, is a tool what we call the Deep Tech Finder. This is one place where you can have at the same time information about the startups having European patents, the fundings. This is financial information coming to from our partner, Dealroom. And we have expanded, starting from the startups to universities, European universities. For startup, it was easy. All those information is collected through the registries. For European universities, it supposed the EPO to knock at the door of different institutions in Europe to collect the data, to treat the data, and now it's there in this tool. So you have now 13,000 entities in this tool, which is accessible on the website, free, 24 hours a day if you wish. 1,000 universities, and this was a result of our study with EARTO last year. We have now a bit more than 150 PROs also identified in this tool. On top of that, we have 12,000 investors, because this is what we want to do, to connect investors with startups. Too often I see initiatives from startups, from universities, creating a platform, trying to raise the profile of their patent portfolio, but there is not enough exchange with investors. What are the needs of investors? You need to talk to the guy with the money. Otherwise, you might have a beautiful shop that nobody will visit. And this is the kind of connection that we want to facilitate. We are also in talk with the TIN, so the network of investors with ESMEA. So this is also for us a journey. We learn every year, but we progress there. Another tool that might interest you, which is, this is a pre-announcement that I reserve for EARTO. This tool is not yet online. It will become live next week in Vivatech. So we participate each year to Vivatech, and we are going to launch this tool, which is called the Data Desk. This is a central portal where we'll get access to all information about the European patent system in very simplified manner with a lot of graphs and so on. So it's very, very easy using, but you will see there are much more than that. You have different boxes, like the boxes on unitary patent. When we speak about fighting fragmentation, delivering tools, and I cannot agree more about the fact that we spend too much time discussing the project. The competitiveness compass is a huge effort, but it will remain a pile of paper if it is not implemented. So we need to deliver, and here, for example, what we did is to provide a technical cartography going very deep in the granularity. So for example, here it is quantum. There will be 5 cartography, 5 boxes on the 17th of June, like hydrogen, solar, photovoltaics, and so on. And quantum will be one of them. And here you can see, sorry, it's a bit blurred, but of course you have the 3 main sectors, domain, computing, sensor, communication, quanting, and then you drill down. And these 3, those definitions are not the classical definition of the patent classification. This is our jargon. Nobody understands that if you are not an expert. The effort we want to do is to simplify the access to this knowledge. So what we did, we work with quantum communities, and we ask them, how do you define your domain, your sectors, from an industrial perspective? And this is what we match with the patent data. And here, you can see for each and every box, the evolution over the 10 years, where are the champions, where Europe lies, and so on. And this is, again, something which is public, free access, and it's just the start. We are going to develop that more and more. What we do, of course, is we provide information, and I will finish by that. So we study the ecosystem in depth, and we have a look into the startups, universities, PROs last year. The next one to come is technology transfer offices. This is an event, again, 22nd of October, another study. We are also developing tool. I will not go into the detail about valuation. This is very important when you speak about the whole innovation ecosystem. And this is something, of course, we want to discuss with EARTO colleagues, and we will contact you after the summer break. And again, I thank you for your attention. If you want to know more, we have here some communication material. We have a LinkedIn newsletter. And just to say that the newsletter who was most read was the one about PROs. So I think that it's an excellent signal about the interest. And thank you again for your attention.
Thank you all the keynote speakers from these insightful contributions. Let's now move on to the panel discussion, from which I am pleased to be joined on stage by Bruno Feignier, Deputy CEO of SEA, located in France, Luc van de Hove, Chairman of the Board of Directors of Imec, located in Belgium, and Katherine Bennett, CEO of the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, located in the UK. Thank you again for being here. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. We have already heard several important topics emerge: competitiveness, technological leadership, industrial resilience, EU R&D, public and private investments, and Europe's ability to scale up breakthrough technologies. Against this backdrop, I would like to open the discussion. And as we are a little bit behind of the schedule, and I know that RTOs are very efficient organizations, I'm going to ask you short answers directly to the topic. So I will start by asking you to share a short comment on any questions you may have for our three previous speakers. So, Bruno?
Sorry, could you repeat? I missed you're too close to me.
Okay, sorry. If you want to share a short comment on what you have heard during these three speeches.
I think one key point we've heard with your three interventions, but also earlier this morning, which is very important, is that there is a global consensus that now is time to act. I think we've heard it many, many times. We see we're at a period where we need to protect our industry, and we need to innovate to help our industry. And that is really across the board. And of course, in that regard, us being members of EARTO and being RTOs, we take our responsibility in that domain, and it is a very critical time. And my first comment will be really this one, is now it is time to act.
Katherine?
Well, first of all, I was pleased to see the focus on industrial policy. Somebody who did work in industry a few years ago, it's something that's so important, and Anthony, you mentioned that, and of course, Alexandr, it's in your job title, which is brilliant to see. I was very intrigued about the terrible 10. I didn't know what that was, so that's me as not being an EU member anymore. I think the really important thing as well has been said, and earlier speakers said it as well, the key thing that RTOs can help is be the bridge, the link into market and commercialization, and I think that's the overriding thing that came out. The other thing that slightly amused me is Anthony's talk, what he mentioned about national games. So that happens everywhere, and it's something that we absolutely need to try and work our way through and ensure that we collaborate as best we can.
Thank you. Luc?
Well, I think indeed, as was mentioned already, it's urgently time to act. And I think urgency is very important. But I think one of the ways we have to do it is by bringing the ecosystem together across Europe, across the member states, and that's where RTOs, I think, can also play a crucial role to enable this.
Okay, thank you, Luc. So time to act and stop playing national games. Now, let me ask you, Bruno, what is your take on Europe's situation today and on the present debate on shaping the future EU research policy?
Thank you, Jesús. Well, time to act. Clearly, this pivotal moment is in everybody's mind. Status quo is not an option here. And clearly, I think there is also the consensus on the fact that Europe was seen as a place of excellent science, excellent technology. Unfortunately, in some areas, this excellent technology didn't create business and industry. But today, we see a changing world, and we see challenges, and we're actually, in terms of technology, our excellence is actually being questioned and there is competition worldwide. And of course, for us, the time to act is to make sure that our technology regain its spot in the world, and it's really important. And this competition with US, with China, is something that is absolutely essential. The second thing is that when we look at the RDI spending in Europe, same thing, it has been mentioned this morning, there is a real issue about the private funding. And therefore, the policies have to focus on how to help leverage this private funding, and this is something that will be something absolutely essential. And the third part is that because we're facing difficult times for our industry, it has to be very clear that for the private sector as general, the survival is with innovation. Innovation will help the long-term situation. Of course, it doesn't help in the short term, but it will help in the long term, and we have to be there with our industry, us RTOs, to provide this innovation and to make sure that they can regain their shares of market for the future. And what maybe a word of concern is that today in Brussels debate, what we hear is on one side, industry that might be overwhelmed by the situation and what we could call the short-term survival that is needed, and that might necessitate a lot of funding. And on the other hand, we hear academia and academic research claiming that they need additional funding. And of course, certainly, technology and what we represent should not be the adjustment variable there. We need this innovation. We need to fund the technology in order to help our industry tomorrow. And of course, an industry that is in good shape then can invest in its innovation, and then, of course, this is the good circle. So clearly, let's make sure that innovation remains at the center of the efforts, not in particular for the next framework program and all the discussion that we have at the moment.
Okay, you can react to the comments. Feel free to react. Look, Imec is a world reference in semiconductors. With the new EU pilot lines on semiconductors, which will be presented later this afternoon. What are the learnings of these efforts that can be applied for the future framework program and European Competitiveness Fund?
Well, I think indeed that I think what we've been doing in semiconductors now in Europe with the European Chips Act, setup of these pilot lines, I think it's a very clear example of where I think RD&I policy and industry policy have been aligned. And I think that from this experiment, which happened in actually the last 3 years, I think a couple of the key learnings that we I think should take away are that, first of all, lab to fab challenge that we're quoting very often, it can be bridged, but it's very important to align the instruments to enable this. I think what we've been able to do is kind of align like Horizon Europe with the CHIPS joint undertaking, with national funding, with industry funding. And if we align that and build it around common shared roadmaps, I think it can be very effective. And in this way, I think pilot lines and shared infrastructures, which is typical for RTOs, can really be game changers and be the platforms to provide open access to SMEs. And I think that is going to be extremely important also to secure Europe's future. But remember, you refer to ASML as a European success story. When we started as an RTO to work with ASML, they were an SME, and look at what it resulted to. So I think those are the examples that we have to multiply within Europe. And I think a third learning from this experiment is that speed, simplicity, and predictability of public funding are crucial. I think if we want to engage private investment, I mean, predictability and long-term stability are essential. And so if we translate those three elements to kind of the next MFF and the FP10 and European Competitive Funds, I think we have to really move from fragmented instruments to more integrated value chain programs, where we have shared objectives across FP10 and the competitive fund. I think a second element I think we have to take away is also we have to scale out this pilot line model to many sectors. And I think that what we're doing today, what we've been doing in semiconductors with these pilot lines, I think it can be extended also to areas such as AI and data centers, clean technology, advanced materials, and biotech. So I think that those industry scale demonstrators are going to be crucial for that. And then thirdly, simplify and accelerate the execution. I think also triggered by the COVID challenge and how semiconductors became such a priority, I think the implementation of this first CHIPS Act, if you look back to it, in 3 years, an enormous amount has been achieved. So I think that's the speed that we need also in many of the other sectors, and therefore simplification and acceleration is going to be crucial. And in order to enable this, we have to, as I mentioned in the beginning, strengthen the public-private co-investment models. They have to be agile, accessible for SMEs, and predictable. So to summarize, I think that we have demonstrated that we can do it with these pilot lines, but they should be strategic, they should be at scale, not distributed everywhere, but critical mass, and built across the full innovation chain. And I think the next MFF is a great opportunity, but this kind of principle should be the rule rather than the exception.
I think pilot lines in semiconductors are a very good example of avoiding playing national games and try to collaborate at the EU level, which is very much needed. Katherine, how should Europe define a word that has been repeated several times today, technological sovereignty in practical terms? Does it mean domestic capability? Does it mean supply chain resilience, strategic interdependence? And what is the role of RTOs and also industry that play in delivering it?
Thank you. Yes, there's just a few words about the Catapult. I look after the manufacturing Catapult. We're one of 9 Catapults in the UK, and actually part of a bigger network as well of EARTO, who are here today, who are a very similar name to EARTO. The president of EARTO is here today, so 57,000 employees across the UK. And it was interesting, Alexandr talked about manufacturing statistics. It's so key. I mean, for me, as a Brit, if I may say, it definitely should not be about isolation. We don't need any more of that. You know, you are weaker if you don't work in collaboration. And the minister earlier, Séjourné, she said, you know, we do deliver technological sovereignty. So it's absolutely key that RTOs are very involved. For me, it's all about capability. It's about control and how you approach technological advances. And of course, it's also about resilience, as was just said earlier on the example about COVID. For me as well, I see one of the crown jewels that European companies have, and I know it's also in existence elsewhere in the world, is the design expertise that we have here. And that is what's key, and that's what the Chinese want to do more and more. But we have such expertise in that, and it's the importance of turning that into the development, how we manufacture it, and also, more importantly, how we deploy it. It doesn't always mean that everything has to be done within the European borders, of course, and I'm delighted that we've got other partners from around the world with us today. There's so many aspects of how we as RTOs can work together and learn where the duplication is, but also learn where the difference is. And the final point for me on tech sovereignty is it is very dependent, of course, on the strength of our supply chains. And that's another area where RTOs, quite rightly, our feet are held to the fire by our governments in terms of how we support SMEs and supply chains in helping with advances in technology. So the other point I've heard a lot said this morning and yesterday in meetings I was in is using the word bridge. And that's what we talk about for our organisation, is a bridge between academia and industry. And that's the only way to ensure that technological advances are really built on. Thank you.
Thank you, Katherine. Bruno, we are all looking at the European Commission, and the European Parliament, at the Council, regarding what is going to happen, not only with the framework program, but especially also with the European Competitiveness Fund.
Absolutely.
How can the future ECF strengthen European competitiveness? And, more important than that, what could be the potential contribution of RTOs?
Thank you. You're absolutely right. It's a key question, and it's a question of burning actuality. It's really today that we're discussing. First of all, it is clear that for us, ECF should be really focused on serving the deployment of technology innovation. And that means to prepare the future, not just help sectors that are in crisis, so prepare the future. And of course, in order for ECF to be really pertinent, it has to be very well and fully articulated with FP10. So this connection between FP10 and ECF is a key issue. And of course, if we say that, then, and we mention that technology innovation must be a significant part of the ECF, then of course RTOs have a major role to play. The connection with industry is something absolutely necessary, and in that regard, ECF could contribute to funding some EU-grade technology infrastructure in strategic sectors. Luc mentioned the pilot lines, which is an obvious example for semiconductors. I'd like, of course, to echo and reiterate what you said about this very good decision that was taken to focus, to have pilot lines that are not concurrent, but that are complementary.
Yes.
And it is extremely important now. Europe has made this investment, and it is absolutely essential that we can keep them for a long time, and that we can operate them. Of course, they have to be an open access to all European researchers and also to European industry. And this is really a key issue. And of course, that in itself is a strong potential contribution to the ECF. And finally, maybe to conclude, a little topic for discussion, although the time is running, but Europe also has at some point to stop being naive, and clearly we should ask the question about protecting our markets, public procurement, European preference. These are some real questions that have to be asked. And of course, once again, for us, the quality of our industry, that the fact that industry is creating revenue is something that is good. Then they can invest in RDI, and of course, if they invest, then they deploy the innovation capacity, and of course RTOs are there to help them.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Luc, coming back to semiconductors, there are two topics which are especially relevant in the future framework program and ECF for RTOs, which are EU partnerships on one side and technology infrastructures on the other side. So how do you think the European Union can mobilize RTOs for the future partnerships and technology infrastructures?
Well, I think that the RTOs should not only be viewed as kind of the contributors to innovation, but they should actually be kind of the backbone of this lab-to-fab transition, and especially enable these SMEs. I think that, we should be much more ambitious on that. I've said in many keynotes before, there is no reason why we cannot create an NVIDIA in Europe. They also started with a few engineers in the garage. So we can do that in Europe, and we have the technology to enable that, often present at RTOs. And therefore, I think in the next programs, we should use the RTOs as kind of the center of these integrated ecosystems. So the role of an RTO is not only to translate technology from the early phase and move up in the TRL chain, but it also has a very important role to bring this ecosystem together. If I refer back to the ASML case, I mean, it is such a nice example of how we bring strengths together in a European ecosystem with ZEISS, with ASML, with Trumpf, and Imec, and bringing the entire user community and materials community together. So that ecosystem role RTOs can play, I think, is extremely crucial for Europe. And in that sense, I believe also the RTOs can kind of form the bridge between FP10 and the ECF. So I think that's a very important message. Also, as Bruno said, we need long-term and stability of those RTOs. We can invest a lot in large infrastructures, but they become obsolete very quickly. So it's very important to have a long-term and stable situation. Stability and predictability are very important for industry to engage. I think they should be open, was said also several times by Bruno. Startups and SMEs should have very easy access. We have to lower the barrier for access to them, to the most complicated technologies. As I mentioned before, scale out this model to many more areas should be a priority in the next frameworks. Also focus on skills and talent. I think their RTOs also have a very important role, not only in developing the technology, but also in training and developing the skills and the people. And I think all of that should kind of come together in those RTOs. So I believe they should be positioned as scale-up engines in Europe. And to some extent, I think in the past, RTOs have been underutilized. And so we have to really, by aligning the ecosystems and the priorities across the various programs from FP10 to ECF, I think we can utilize them better and connect the industry even better to these RTOs. I believe that's the great opportunity we have, is to make this model systematic across many strategic sectors.
Thank you, Luc. Although I promised that we were going to be very efficient, and I think we were.
We're almost.
Time is running out, but there is still room for a last question to Katherine.
I'll be really quick.
No, don't worry. We are much better than when we started, so that's okay. And it's about let's look a little bit to the RTO model. Different regions are taking distinct approaches for developing critical technologies. Some highlight target, other more networker, multidisciplinary. What do you see as the comparative advantage of Europe's RTO model? And where does it need to evolve to remain competitive globally?
Well, there's many different formats and sizes and governance, and governments wish to do things in a different way, which is fine. And I think what we should do is learn from that, of course. I think one of the other aspects, and I know I'm talking to an audience of people who get RTOs and know what we're here for, but really one of the things that I find most fascinating is the multidiscipline approach that we can take. So we know about defense, we know about automotive, we know about advanced materials, we know about semiconductors. All of that is pulled together within our centers of expertise. And of course, with the crucial focus we have on defense and dual use at the moment, that's interesting. And Bruno and I were talking yesterday about the fighter program. You know, UK's door is always open, by the way, she says. You know, let's ensure that we do endeavour to continue discussions on these really important things. The final point I'll make is picking up on the metaphor that Mr. Gayson said from the Flanders government about riding a bicycle. I think the most important thing that made me think on reflecting, which is a great metaphor he gave there, is we have e-bikes now. So we can accelerate and we can do things fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katherine. Last opportunity for the speakers. If you want to say something, please.
Maybe one word, because I think rightly so, the focus is very much on funding and budget. And this is, of course, for good reason. But skills and education for me, I think this is often overlooked. I think that no students of school engineers, technical research should live without a basic knowledge on innovation and intellectual property. Too often, when you see some failure sometimes, is the R&D process is processed until the end, and then the last minute, call the legal department, there might be a patent to file. So this is a recipe for the failure. I mean, this strategy should be embedded with the CEO as part of the innovation strategy. And here this is still something that we see, of course, it's you have TTOs who are excellent in managing that, so it's not to say that whole Europe is not at the level, on the contrary, but still a lot of work has to be done there. And when you speak about policies, also about the instrument, why are we doing a study on TTOs that I announced for October? Because they came to us because they raised the alarm. They said, when you have budgetary issues in a university, the first post they will shut down is a TTO, because it's something, an alien in their world, and they think, what is this for, and so on, filing a few patents. They don't see the interest for them to develop. And US is, we said, is a vibrant environment. They had the Bayh-Dole Act adopted 40 years ago already. China is catching up very quickly. Last year, they have a 5-year plan when they focus on filing patents, especially supporting universities to do so. The new 5-year plan, which was just published a few months ago, is now, we want companies to look in the most valued patent of your universities to be injected in the project that we will sell to Europe. So we are going to pay the fees of universities of China that will make them richer, more attractive, attract their talent, like US attracting the talent from Europe. So I think this is also an element that should be, which is often overlooked in the instrument of those policies. And you can count on us to continue to pass the message.
Gilles, thank you. Alexandr, you're closing.
Okay, let me be very fast. I think, thank you very much for all the input and comments, and I think they square very well with the thinking in the Commission, which is no wonder, because we have been engaging with the different stakeholders, industry, RTOs, universities, when thinking about the future of tools. Just maybe one comment, and I agree with the notion that the ECF, or the tools that we have, should be agile, should be focused, and should be preparing Europe for the future. Right? So we need something which will somehow have support for the huge structural transformation that we need. Because we were talking about, for example, R&D spending, where we see a big gap compared to the US, for example, and now also to China. But big part of this is structural. It's because of the structure of the European economy. So it's not that the same sectors in European and US economy, the Europeans would be spending less on R&D. No, it's mostly because we have much smaller representation of sectors which are R&D intensive. So in order to catch up with the US, we need to support in particular these sectors which are there for the future. So this is what we need to push the whole transformation, and this is where the innovation comes with the industrial agenda.
Thank you very much. As we come to an end of this session, I would like to thank all the speakers and panelists for their valuable contribution and insights. And my takeaway for this session can be said in just that Europe needs three things right now: agility, agility, and agility. So thank you very much. Yes. Muriel, please come on stage.
So while we have been discussing very heavy topics, right, what will be competitiveness fund, FP10, the role of RTOs, now we're going to a more fun part, which is our innovation awards. So as you know, it is today our 18th. So I asked my team to give me a little bit of figures. And 18th editions of our innovation awards, what does that mean? That means we got about 450 applications in all those years for about 87 winners. And I've been actually to VTT, so I have to say thanks to Kala teams. I've seen already 3 awards of VTT, so that was one of the toppers. So you guys have to, you know, push up for those who have won so far. So 87 winners, about, you know, 24 RTOs with 21 different countries. So when I do a tour of my members over the years, then I, time to time, come across some of those winners. And I see that even 10 years afterwards, some people are still very proud. I see also some of the spin-offs of RTOs who have won the impact expected, which actually are still delivering and still advertising our awards. So we can be quite proud. We have actually 2 types of awards to give. The first one is impact delivered, and the second one is impact expected. I think the names say it all, so you will see. We have few presentations. This year we got 32 submissions from very different type of topics. So you will see in the small videos we have for each category the type of innovation that the RTOs can bring around. What we see also, and I think we have some slides, we have a great jury every year that help us to define who are the winners. We have first a task force that goes through the 32, and we give a list of the toppers to the jury to review. I can tell you it's quite a heavy work, so we are always happy that they do take the time for us. So this year we had Esther. Esther Lacos is a member of the European Parliament. She is very active, also especially looking at FP10 and widening type of topics. We have Jörg. Jörg is actually with us today. Jörg is Vice President of the Corporate Strategy of AVL, but he's also the chair of the working group RDI of Business Europe, so great partners also to us. We had Elisa Riviera, and Elisa is the Director of Coordination, especially Knowledge Transfer in the Ministry of Science and Innovation in Spain. She knows a lot our members all in FEDIT, our National Association of RTO in Spain. And we have Michiel Scheffer, who is the President of the Board of the EIC. So, and he's even a tougher jury member because he's used to do that also sometime for the EIC. So, this jury had to review quite a number of submissions, and they came to a kind of choice. So we will show you now the top 3 for the impact delivered category. That will be the first one. So let's launch the small video to see the top 3, and then we will announce the winner.
Across industries, organizations generate vast amounts of data, yet many critical decisions are still taken using fragmented analyses. AIR is an AI acceleration platform developed to bridge the gap between advanced analytics and real-world decision-making. The platform, realized by LTPlabs, a spin-off of INESC TEC, combines reusable AI components, scalable orchestration, and intuitive interfaces to rapidly deliver solutions for planning, sizing, and scheduling. This approach significantly accelerates deployment, allowing companies to move from data to actionable insights faster and more effectively. Already adopted across more than 190 industrial projects in over 20 countries, AIR is delivering measurable results, including cost reductions of up to 40% and substantial operational savings. Its impact is particularly visible in retail, where it has optimized the management of over 1 million near-expiry products, preventing 810 tons of food waste and generating more than 3.5 million euros per year in efficiency gains. DyThera, developed by Joseph Stefan Institute, is transforming power transmission by unlocking hidden grid capacity through dynamic line rating. As renewable integration and demand strain existing networks, DyThera enables operators to maximize infrastructure use without compromising safety. Built within the Sumo dynamic rating system, it enhances classical thermal models with advanced representations of weather effects such as convection, radiation, solar heating, rain, and icing. Its key innovation lies in a probabilistic approach that integrates weather and model uncertainties delivering ampacity forecasts with defined confidence levels for real-time and predictive operation. By increasing transmission capacity by 20 to 50% under most conditions, DyThera reduces congestion, lowers redispatch costs, and defers costly grid expansions. During extreme events like heat waves or icing, it provides critical decision support, improving resilience and minimizing economic losses. Structural characterization and chemical analysis at the nanometer scale are essential across fields such as electronics, biology, and geology. But existing commercial instruments are unable to deliver true nanoscale performance. The Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, in collaboration with Wraith, developed magSIMS, an advanced mass spectrometer built on a decade of research in ion-matter interactions, charged particle optics, instrument development, and field testing. Its unique performance makes it the leading tool for nanometer scale structural and chemical analysis. As a cross-cutting innovation, magSIMS supports Europe's transition toward a carbon-neutral, pollution-free, and technologically sovereign future by providing critical nanoscale data. Successfully transferred to industry, it is already in daily use at world-class research institutes, demonstrating its impact across science and technology domains.
So, Jesús, shall we announce who the winner is?
Yes, 3 great and impactful innovations indeed. Congratulations to all the 3 finalists, INESC TEC, GCI and LIST. And the winner is GCI with DyThera, an advanced dynamic line rating software. Congratulations, and please join us on stage. For the photo.
You give them for the photo.
They are going to talk? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yay!
Congratulations.
Congrats! Congrats to the team! Congrats, Romana! Congrats, Leron. So if one of you wants to say the floor, I think you have to use the mic on the other side.
So I'm very humbled and also very proud of my colleagues. I tend to say that, you know, the global warming will change the weather conditions, of course, and in new weather conditions we should fight also with non-weather dependent technologies, but this is one of the weather dependent technologies here. Actually, the story goes, if I may, that it started with the ice rain in 2014, when the part of the high voltage transmission lines in Slovenia got maybe 10 centimeters of ice and it broke down. So we started to think, is there enough heat in the transmission line to break the ice? That was one limit of the system, and now we are in the other limit of the system. In very hot days, how much electricity can go through. Very proud also the system operator in Slovenia, LS, who took over the investment and also did take the product into their own use and actually spread the product. It's now operating not only in Slovenia, it's operating in many European and non-European countries also. And maybe the word to the colleague before who said that transmission lines between Spain and France are at 3%. Now we have 5 if you take this one. Thank you very much.
So when we give a last applause, please also note the colleague of GSI won already last week. Is the second award of this month, Leon, I remember, for GSI. So last week they got awarded by Commissioner Zarajeva the awards for gender issues. And we know that Romana there, who is old MEPs in the past and did a lot of RDI and now working at GSI, has been quite instrumental. So nice to see our Slovenian colleague doing so well. So now we go to the second category. which is impact expected. And let's look at the video showing the 3 nominees.
Solubility testing is a major bottleneck in drug discovery and early development. Current gold standard methods rely on slow, solvent-intensive high-performance liquid chromatography workflows that consume large amounts of energy, chemicals, and valuable compounds. ORYL F1, a high-throughput solubility and aggregation profiling instrument developed by CSEM in collaboration with ORYL Photonics and the University of Applied Sciences Northwestern Switzerland, detects the earliest stages of molecular aggregation at extremely low concentrations. It scans a full 384 well plate in about 15 minutes, delivering up to 100 times higher throughput while requiring 100 times less compound than traditional HPLC-based methods. ORYL F1 reduces chemical use by up to 99% and energy consumption by 97%, enabling faster, greener, and more reliable solubility decisions across a wide range of therapeutics, allowing pharmaceutical researchers to identify viable drug candidates earlier, reduce development risk, and accelerate the delivery of safer, more effective medicines. Many promising drugs fail in clinical trials because conventional in vitro tests and animal models do not truly mirror human physiology, while also raising serious ethical concerns. Organ-on-a-chip technologies address this by recreating human organ functions in miniature, but current high-throughput formats often lose essential 3D co-culture complexity and require cumbersome equipment. The innovative gravity-driven microfluidic organ-on-a-chip plate developed by Leitat combines true high-throughput screening with advanced biology. Its membrane-free design supports both 2D and 3D co-cultures, is scalable by injection molding, and remains intuitive to set up, monitor, and analyze. Leitat's platforms enable robust, cost-effective, non-animal drug discovery and personalized medicine, which are set to accelerate industrial adoption of organ-on-a-chip technologies and help phase out 60% of all animal testing, driving significant social, environmental, and economic benefits. Existing 3D cell culture models rely on animal-derived or synthetic materials that lack the complexity of human extracellular matrix, exhibit batch variability, and fail to replicate tissue-specific microenvironments, leading to poor translational predictability and high drug attrition in clinical trials. Developed by TECNALIA, FATRIXGEL is a 100% human-derived hydrogel that mimics the native extracellular matrix with high fidelity, enabling physiologically relevant 3D cultures through a patented, scalable decellularization process that preserves up to 90% of native extracellular matrix proteins. By replacing unreliable matrices with a reproducible, human-relevant, and tunable platform, FATRIXGEL accelerates drug discovery, reduces animal testing, and improves therapeutic development, with the potential to transform biomedical research and reduce late-stage drug attrition by 15%.
So we are looking at the second winner.
Okay, before announcing the winner, I would like to congratulate the finalists, CSEM, TECNALIA, I promise I didn't influence on the jury, and in particular Leitat, which also celebrates his 120th anniversary this year. And yesterday we realized that DTI from Denmark also is celebrating the 120th anniversary this year. What a milestone. The finalists have all shown great innovations with very strong potential, so congratulations to the 3 finalists. And now the winner of the Impact Expected category is CSEM, with ORYL F1, a new profiling instrument for faster solubility testing. Congratulations. Please join us in the stage.
Woohoo! Congrats, Erika! Congrats!
So first of all, thank you very much, EARTO, for this wonderful award. And it was also very nice to see the 3 finalists from the health domain. This prize goes to our team of tools for life sciences and also ORYL photonics. Wonderful collaboration, and this is really showing the mission of CSEM also to collaborate with the startup companies and industry and bringing the innovation for the products outside. And I hope that we will have a very safe medication coming out with this technology. Thank you very much.
Yay! Thank you.